All right, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:02. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first order of business is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is that Cara?
Yes.
Any additions, deletions, corrections? Hearing any, all those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. General public comment. Anyone wishes to speak who is online, if you would just type your name in chat, so that way I can see who wants to speak. And while you're doing that, I do have a statement around public comment that relates to our policy on public speaking. And I just wanted to go over this really quick. I don't feel a lot who want to speak, but it's just to kind of clarify participation in public board meetings and generally how public comment works. On the agenda, we list general public comments and listen and defer to action. So generally we don't. We usually listen to public and defer to probably another meeting. So ensuring all community members have a reasonable opportunity to express their views to the board, completing board business effectively, efficiently, in an orderly manner, respecting the rights and opinions of board members, staff members, students, and audience members. I ask that if you would like to speak, adhere to the following. If you are in person, please sign in to a speaker sheet. If you're attending online, indicate in the chat your name and that you would like to speak. All speakers may be given a time limit to address the board and expected not to exceed that time limit. You allowed only to speak once. All questions will be taken into advisement and will be addressed within reason and within 72 hours by email or at the next meeting. Proper decorum and etiquette are expected to be followed at all the public meetings of the school board and supervisory union. Recognized speakers shall not transfer or delegate their time to others. If a speaker is no longer present in the meeting room at the time he or she is recognized, the speaker shall forfeit his or her opportunity to speak and shall be prohibited from transferring the time to a different individual. Groups that wish to express their views shall select one speaker to represent the group's view to the board. When in judgment of the board chair, it appears, get rid of that. But having said that, I will say that I will open it up to public comment. And I'm not seeing anyone online who wishes to speak, so I guess
I wish to speak also, but Cynthia's welcome to go first.
yes, Cynthia, did you want to speak tonight? And I'm not sure if everyone can hear you. Do we have a mic?
This is the mic? Yep, there's one right here.
They just move up a little bit.
Cynthia, you can come up here so that we can hear you. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
mic,
yeah.
so you can just,
Anyone
either
who
way.
wants to talk.
That's, yeah, right there's fine.
Oh, okay. Cynthia Clayton, Middletown Spring. I was at the last meeting and the first meeting I ever attended. Both part-time and full-time since 1989. And I passed out a letter to everyone on the school board. Well, I gave it to one person and then I emailed it to have it passed to the members. And I didn't hear anything back from that request from anyone within 72 hours or at all. So I am here, my proposal was to come up with a solution until the school board moves ahead with keeping up to what I feel is current in the data that's coming out. So as far back as 2020, there was a report around masks. I've got my paperwork right up here. 2020, a major study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine found no statistically significant difference in COVID-19 cases between mask wearers and non-mask wearers. The Danish randomized controlled trial was the first in the world to test for the efficacy of face masks to prevent wearers from contracting the coronavirus. So since that time, there has been many studies that have been released, and I am wondering at what point is school board going to, sorry, got my papers mixed up here. Still working on it. Okay, so here, since that time period, we're looking at more than 150 studies showing that face masks are actually harmful, and that was December 2021. 47 studies confirmed ineffective masks for COVID, and then a meta-study shows that masks are actually dangerous. This is August 29th of 2020. And in that meta-study published by the Internal Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, comprehensive investigation on the adverse health effects of mask wearing. The study included a review of 65 studies on the effects of mask use. The researchers found recurring patterns of health issues associated with mask wearers. They coined the term mask-induced exhaustion syndrome to refer to the recurrent and uniform presentation of psychological and physical deterioration among mask wearers. And then it goes through all of those symptoms that they have. And so today, the latest is a study out of Johns Hopkins that has concluded initially it was about lockdowns, and that lockdowns have much more detrimental impact on society than produced any benefit, with research urging that they are ill-founded and should be rejected as a pandemic policy instrument. However, included in that, the bottom line of that study was in a further analysis of lockdown versus no lockdown, face masks versus none, closing non-essential businesses, border closures, school closures, limiting gatherings. The study also found no broad-based evidence of noticeable effects on COVID-19 mortality. So, you know, as the time is going by here, we're getting more and more of these studies. And the question is, at what point is the policy going to change to reflect those studies? I mean, to stay stagnant on day one when all of this new information is coming down the pike is, to me, it shows a lack of, I don't know, leadership in terms of the Vermont state. I mean, this is serious stuff. These kids every day is a huge issue for these kids. And so to continue this on, what I was suggesting by the letter that I wrote saying, split these kids up and let kids have no mask and be in the gym and the kids be in the classroom and just keep them separate, but have equal access if their rights are being acknowledged until you figure out how the policy for everybody is going to go forward. These kids have been suffering who don't feel like they should be wearing masks for vaccination. And that's the next policy that has to be, you know, considered. And what what I've looked at and seen is that part of the point is a money game here, whether that's COVID in the hospital, making potentially $100,000 on patients who are tested and go through COVID, the COVID protocol and dying with COVID on their death certificate. And then same thing is happening within the education system through the CARES Act, which became the American Rescue Plan, where as long as you're getting money for it, as long as you make sure that you get the vaccination rate up. So when there's money involved like this coming to make sure that kids are masked, and if they're not masked, you're not getting the money. And if they're not vaccinated, you don't get the, you're not going to get the money from these programs. At some point, you're going to have to make this really hard choice about, what about this money that's coming to the tune of $290 million to Vermont alone? And I know there's states who object to this money and have said, no, we don't want your money. Arizona, I believe, is one of them. And Biden force the states to take them. So that's the next step that's going to have to be considered. But in the meantime, I just feel like there's enough information out there at this point to start pushing back against the state that has given you these guidelines and making some hard decisions for these kids.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Amen.
Meredith, I see you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I don't understand why there are people in the school without masks on. We have a policy that requires people in our schools to be wearing masks, and I'm wondering why this is happening.
Would you like for me to speak to that
I think
or no?
the best way, we have a requirement to wear masks, but it's like it was discussed, it's how do you enforce it, honestly? We can ask people to wear masks, and yeah, I think.
If you're in the building, you're supposed to be wearing a mask, correct?
Correct.
So then you can't be in the building. You can still attend the meeting, but you can't be in the building. Why have a policy if you're not going to follow it?
Technically, we don't have a policy. We have.
Okay, we have we are following the AOE guidelines set forth by the state based on our superintendent's direction. We've said yes, we believe he's making the best decisions for this. You're allowing anybody to walk through that door now without a mask on, tomorrow included.
Fair point. And I guess all we can do is ask either you to wear a mask.
But
And honestly, and we've had, brief discussions about this before too, where the board did make this decision by majority, and by not respecting it, it does show that anyone could do the same. Who's to say, like Meredith has a fair point. Again, we haven't had this issue over the last few months, but I guess my concern was never really to play mask police, and more along the lines of just having a board meeting that was effective and done in a timely manner. So I see your frustration, Meredith.
Well, then the board meeting could be at the SU where you are not required to wear a mask. Or you can attend online. This is very disrespectful.
My question is, how do you get the board to pay
I can't hear what she's saying.
to the
Would her comments be out of order at this point?
Yeah, we can't hear them anyways.
They can't hear you.
Here, you can just,
Eric, I mean, I hate to double point of order you, but Meredith called a point of order. It's the board is discussing it. And so can I call a point of order that no non-board members could talk at this point because they haven't been recognized by the chair?
Well, Meredith never called a point of order.
Oh,
I didn't.
apologize.
You're
I
correct.
apologize.
I was going to, but I didn't think it was necessary, but it is. So I'll call a point of order. You're supposed to have masks on.
there was question as to, I asked when I walked in, by what written policy are we following when we demand masks? And we came to the conclusion that the only thing that we have standing is the vote in the September meeting where we verbally voted on whether we made Chris, I'm sorry, I don't remember the wording, Eric, but basically responsible for COVID policy decisions. And many schools did that during the state of emergency. Most of them, it was a delegation of authority that many schools did. And on the Vermont State Board of Education website and the email that they sent out today, it very clearly said, I mean, the ones that did it on paper and not just a verbal sentence, it was code A25. And on the Vermont State Board website, it clearly states that those policies are no longer, the delegation of authority, the A25, is no longer relevant because there's not a state of emergency. I would assume that unless the board meets and actually creates new policies surrounding COVID, then we go with the policies that we already have in place. I recognize your frustration, Meredith, and I understand that you find it to be, disrespectful. But the school buildings belong to the members of the town, and they get to voice their opinion and vote possibly. I mean, maybe a new policy could be put into place. That's something that we could all discuss, but I had a question as to, by whose authority I find it to be disrespectful that I recovered from COVID. I have no way of passing COVID. I have no way of getting COVID. I have been around many people who actively have COVID, caring for them. I haven't gotten it. The science, there is so much science and medicine that proves that I am never going to get and pass. I mean, I'm going to get COVID.
Okay, can we, this has gone beyond the mask discussion and
Meredith, hold on a second. I was just gonna say, is this like part of your public comment? Was this what you wanted to speak on public comment? I assumed it was.
Well, not necessarily.
Okay, so what I want to do is you know, this discussion is way beyond public comment. And we actually have somebody else who wishes to speak. So what I'll say is in regards to the mask, we asked you to wear a mask. You don't want to wear a mask. Obviously, you're here for the meeting. And I don't think, obviously, you're not wanting to leave. So honestly, I don't know where to go from here. And like I said earlier, it kind of sets a bad image for the board potentially, but you know, there's still more business to do on the agenda. So moving forward, we could put this for another discussion on a future agenda. But we're way off topic and, you know, we haven't even gotten anywhere on the agenda. So, Ryan, did you have, did you have public comment for tonight still?
I do. Thank you, Eric. I'd kind of like to just piggyback onto the first person that spoke. I believe her name was Cindy. It was kind of hard to hear her. I'd also like to see the policies revisited. We're at a different point now in this pandemic. It's being referred to, you know, an endemic in a lot of places now. I think I'd like to see the school board take some initiative and get some parents involved. I've been asking for this as well. Find out where parents stand, how they feel about it. I've been speaking with several parents, and I feel like we're all about done with the masks. Our children are as well. I have my son listening with me. He's in 5th grade at Middletown, and we're not really seeing the point, especially when we see a big game like the Super Bowl being geared up with thousands of people. We watch sporting events every day with thousands of people indoors, not wearing masks. I feel like you mentioned we're doing more harm than good for our children right now. I understand that it's a sensitive topic and we all feel differently about it, and I respect people's opinions. I've always pushed for parent choice. I believe that in a public school, we have a lot of input and say into what's happening, and that hasn't been done. I've never been once asked personally how I feel about my children wearing a mask in school by the school board or by the principal. A comment that was made to my son yesterday in the school is what prompted me to want to revisit this, because I've kind of sat quiet and let things go in hopes that we were going to see these mandates start to fade and maybe I wouldn't have to speak up. But I'm having a hard time not, because my son's teacher said yesterday, and I respect his teacher very much. She's a wonderful person. It's nothing personal. But her comment was that her job was to keep my son healthy. And I have a problem with that comment, because that is my job. That is his job. That is not her job. The school's job is to provide a healthy and safe environment and teach my child. It doesn't take a village. I don't like that statement. And I don't think that that is her role. And I really do think that the school, with all these concerned parents, could at least revisit this. I understand it's not going to make everyone happy, but I'm still pushing for parent choice. And I think that if this doesn't start to happen, I think we're going to need to start going to the select board to see how we go about getting funds to send our kids to other schools. That's all for now. Thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry. I just want to add one more thing, that you kind of covered the guidelines of public comment. I do find it very rude, and even my son picked up on that. The heavy sighing when people are speaking is really rude, and it's just disrespectful. So I think people should mute when they're not speaking. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. All right. I see no one else who wishes to speak. So we'll.
I wish to speak.
What's that?
I still wish to speak. And Janelle Carr as well.
Okay. Janelle?
Hi, I just wanted to reiterate what Ryan just said, and I would also like to see any mask policy that might be put in place or not. I don't know. It's kind of confusing at this point. I don't want my kids wearing masks at school anymore. They have a hard time hearing their teacher at times. My daughter is in the back of the classroom and she says that there are times when she has a hard time hearing her teacher. They can't see facial expressions, just interactions with each other as kids. Sometimes like they think somebody says something and it sounds like it's mean and snarky, but it's actually not because they can't see their facial expressions to know these things. My daughter has asthma, and she's not playing basketball this year because they were going to require her to wear a mask. So she's missing out on that this year as well. There's just so many bad things that are happening to our kids. The teachers are putting way too much effort to make sure that these masks are on these kids' faces instead of paying attention to other things like educating our children. Behaviors have gone through the roof. This year, the amount of behaviors and the types of behaviors are like no other year we've ever dealt with. So I would like to see this mask wearing, whatever it is, revisited and let the parents choose whether or not to put a mask on our kids' faces. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. You wanted to speak?
I did. And it's not about, any particular policy. My speaking wasn't about, it was more so that I have been finding it more and more difficult to be in a school board meeting and go go down the list of agenda items and vote on them when I feel like there is an entire list of things that we don't cover, we don't even mention, we avoid like the plague. And those are the items that seem to be crumbling our school system. And they affect every item that is on the agenda. And so it's really frustrating because it's almost as if I don't agree with the entire philosophy and movement of what is happening at the school. So how can I vote on each individual agenda item? I mean, my daughter is no longer in school. I've enrolled her in homeschooling, and it is directly due to a anxiety about school that is now a full-blown phobia around COVID policy. She, is afraid that someone will hear her cough. So, and I hear similar things from all of these parents, just like I know everyone else is hearing too. How their, children are being harmed. And not only that, society is, the entire community has become divisive. We can't look each other in the eye. We can't have conversations across the table, all because of these policies that we refuse to have an open and honest conversation about. And in my opinion, we don't all need to agree on what's the best thing to do about COVID or whether to wear a mask or whether to get vaccinated. We don't need to settle the argument. That doesn't need to happen. But we do have to have a conversation, or I can't continue to, I cannot participate in a farce. So, the principal's reports are great. They highlight events that are happening in the school, but is it a reflection, Rick, of what you go through every day? With parents calling you on both sides? I don't think it's a reflection of that.
All right, thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jody. All right, so we're going to close public comment. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes. You should have minutes from January 19th, 12th, and the 26th. Is there a motion
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
as presented? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any changes or corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say, raise your hand. Any noes? Motion passes unanimous. Warrants. We have warrant 208 and 210. Is there a motion to approve these?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second. It's Amanda.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Amanda?
I'm sorry, I said aye.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see it. All right. All right, motion passes. Superintendent's report.
Thanks, Eric. I have just a few things. Majority of our work this past month has been focused on town meeting, and getting the booklets ready, the budget presentation. We finished the budget presentation this past week. We should be sending that off to PEG TV by the end of this week, if not by Monday morning. So it should be airing sometime mid to end of next week for that. So annual reports have been sent out to the printers. We will be getting copies to board members as well. But I know that as in past, we have made a decision not to print out and deliver copies to families. We will have copies available at the town office here at the school, but we'll also have a copy that can be viewed and downloaded on our GRCSU website as well. I just want to remind people that, like I said, our informational meeting is on February 23rd at 7 o'clock. It will be virtual. Like I said, that will, the information can be found on our GRCSU website or in the normal locations where the meetings are typically warned. And then the town vote takes place on March 1st. The COVID update, there's just one thing that you've all should have seen this letter by now, but we have shifted from test to state to test to home. We received the supplies that were necessary on Friday. We were able to mobilize on Monday and Tuesday. And so that has been that shift that's been kind of alluded to. We intentionally delayed the shift. Other districts kind of went early in on this and realized they didn't have the supplies to support it. We held off just a bit until we received the supplies, but we have the supplies now necessary to do this shift. So if families would need a kit, they can always put up here at school or just request that through the school. Speak to Mr. Beal or Ms. Colty. And last part really is just about the map testing. I think Rick and those talk about that. We have completed our mid-year map assessments, and we'll be looking at that data and providing some results a little bit later. So that's all I really have. So.
Any questions? Meredith?
Yeah, I noticed this in your report, and I think I've read this on the state site before, on that, I'm sorry, I gotta go back here to mask wearing is only through January 18th.
So that is a typo. It's February 28th.
Thank you.
Yes.
Amanda?
I just had a question in the most recent letter that was sent about kids returning to school after they had COVID. Is there a plan B other than 2 negative tests if these kids are continuing to test positive for 10, 14, 20 days, as they say it is possible for them to test positive up to 90? Do we have another plan if that happens?
So, I mean, I think you're talking about a very specific case, and I think if that is the case, we'll be working with that family, those individuals regarding that, okay? So, but we don't have a plan for someone who's testing 10, 20, or I think you said 40 days out, outside of that. So that would be something which we work with the Department of Health as well as our school nurse on this to assist the family. Because our goal, like I said, is to have students in school as quickly as possible.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering in general, not really a specific family, if there was like a 10 or 14-day quarantine that was a second option. That was all. I wasn't sure if that was in there somewhere.
No, it's not in there, man. Thank you.
I had a question, maybe in regards to the education fund surplus. It says that half of that funding is going to go to CTEs. I mean, is that like primarily going to just benefit secondary students? I mean, more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, in the budget recommendations, and these are part of the recommendations, they're looking at what to do with this surplus, and I think that's, as Lewis had alluded to in our budget discussion, I think a lot of people feel that a conservative approach is that they'd split 45 right down the middle, and that what they do with the other 45 million. And so part of Governor Scott's recommendations is really putting emphasis on CTE, as well as provided a virtual option, like a virtual school for students to attend. And really it's done for work-based learning, flexible pathways, things along those lines. So the CTE Center typically do benefit secondary students. But I just said I don't know specifically if there are plans that would benefit students outside of that, if there are other sort of programs. So we haven't seen the full details of what that looks like as of yet.
Okay. What I figured. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Principals reports.
So, good evening, everybody. And just to address Jody's point, my 11th year at Middletown Springs, by far, this has been the most difficult period. And I think for anyone in education right now, any principal, any teacher, any IA, anybody working, it is a difficult time. But we do it, I do it because it's worth it with the kids. We care about the kids. And we hope it's going to get better. So we like what we do. We care about the kids and we want to work with families. And but I would say it has not been easy for anyone, at least not from my perspective. So the highlights is, yes, we're working through this, and and hopefully there's going to be light to the end of the tunnel. Some of the huge things is certainly have the MAP testing and 3 times a year, and we'll be using the data from that to give us direction on help us students achieve the end of year academic progress. It's nice to get back to having a winter sports program. I think both we have it this year. I'm sure who else too. We have our wonderful program at PICO, and I want to thank the families who helped support it and FFE to help cover the cost. We have almost all the students picking a winter sports program, and it's been a pleasure to see the kids out on the slope doing something they haven't done for 2 years, and this is what it's about, giving the kids those experiences. To help give those experiences, both Middletown Springs and Wells was awarded a Farm to School grant, which will be setting up, deciding how we're going to use the funds. We do have a planning meeting with the key stakeholders in the state to help us plan for the money. I think there's going to be some exciting things between school garden and also cooking in schools is one of the proposed activities. Yeah, so that's the highlights. We're halfway through the school year, and we're all working really hard.
Questions for Rick? All right.
Good evening, everyone. You have my report in the packet. I did want to highlight, we have filled our school-wide gem jar, which is how we support students with PBIS. And today, classes were able to sign up for an indoor snowball fight, so it actually occurred in here, and the kids seen some pictures. They had a great time. It was a nice way to celebrate their success with a little bit of fun as well. So I thank the teachers for taking that time to really build some more community. We are fortunate to be able to have our basketball program going. I know we've had some interruptions with Test to Stay and the guidelines for intramural supports, but our kids are excited to come and play and to practice, and are really doing a nice job working as a team together. We also have completed all of our MAPS assessments, and like Mr. Silva and Mr. Field, that we'll be reviewing those in the coming weeks to make instructional changes for the second half of the school year. And I did want to note that the 5th and 6th grade trip has been discussed via our parent rep group. We're looking to go to Boston at the end of May, middle to end of May. So we are beginning that next itinerary planning that we'll get out to families shortly. So looking forward to the second half of the year and all the excitement that brings for our students.
Great, thank you.
I just have, there's one thing that may need to be discussed. We're having this problem with some of our schools. As schools are looking to plan their trips, they are running into problems with vaccinations.
Okay.
I know that a high school is looking at going to Boston and going to a sporting events, and where you have to provide proof of vaccination as well as some of the hotels. So that is something that the board will have to discuss.
Sure.
Around these trips,
Good to know.
around
Yeah, thank you.
whether or not we plan a trip that all students participate in.
Okay, fantastic. We'll put all of that.
And those are things that are out of our control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad we had that conversation right now. Thank you.
Any questions for this? All right. Thank you both. All right, moving on to monthly financials. Lewis is here.
Yes, I don't have anything specific to report, but if there's any questions regarding the financials, I could answer.
Okay, it was just for information.
Correct. Yep. As Chris stated earlier, we've been busy working on annual reports, the flyers that'll be sent out in the mail, and our PEG TV presentations, which should be airing pretty soon.
Meredith?
Where are we with the deficit for this year?
I plan to meet with Rick and Liz in the next week or two. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance in the last few weeks just due to the meeting the demands to get all of the stuff to the printer and getting them out for town meeting in time. The town meeting has really been the priority, and getting the PEG TV recordings done, and just haven't had a chance to meet with them. But it is those are all done, and I'm ready to move on with the next priorities, which are meeting with both Rick and Liz as well as other principals on the forecast and the deficit. So I should have something to report by next month.
All right, any other questions for Lewis or about the monthly financials? All right. Thank you, Lewis.
You're welcome.
We have resignation. This is a tough one. I mean, do we have to?
She had said June 1st in her letter, but I believe the resignation note says the 31st or the end of July 1st. We need to square that up a little.
I do believe it's in the contract, Meredith, and we'll double check that, okay?
So that'd be the end of June.
So. I just wanna- question.
But, yeah, go ahead.
I just noticed in the letter, it says if a replacement is found sooner, I can potentially, not that I'm trying to get rid of her, I don't even know her. But, it seems like, I mean, are we in the process of hiring? Like, it kind of seems like she's, you know,
We,
or not.
if the board approves this, then we'll begin the process.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
All right. Is there a motion?
So would the motion, just so I know the verbiage, would be a motion to accept the resignation or?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would move that we accept Jacqueline Becker's resignation.
Mr. Guy. Is there a second?
I'll second to approve her resignation with regret.
Any other discussion?
Again, I'm just gonna say, you know, it's, her letter says June 1st.
Yep.
So, we just have to be clear with that.
So would clarifying the motion be appropriate to, you know, accept her resignation effective June 1st? And does that bar us from searching for somebody sooner? If we wait until June 1st to accept her resignation?
No. I think the question is the last day going to be June 1st or June 30th, correct?
Well, she would be on a teacher contract, so the last student day.
Oh, okay. But if we're accepting her resignation, we're accepting her letter stating June 1st.
So if we have to amend it, we can amend that.
Oh, amend the
The
contract.
dates, right?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, if somebody is looking to fill this position before June 1st, would she still stay through the end, or is she kindly offering to stay through the end, but is actually looking for somebody now?
It sounds like, and I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but it sounds like she's going to see out the duration of her contract. But if for some reason we have a qualified candidate that we can bring in sooner rather than later, then I think she would be willing to step aside for that candidate to come in. Finding school nurses it's very difficult. And I know that we all talk about great loss. I think this is just another example of the toll that COVID has taken on staffing. So I think it's one where she's willing to kind of see up contract. But if we could find someone in February, March that was willing to come in, I think she'd be willing to work with us around that. So that's what it looks like from the letter. So.
Okay.
Just knowing Jackie, I don't think she's going to try to hold up a hiring of a replacement based around a date. So
No, more of my concern is we don't find somebody and we have school ending and, you know, the rest of June and no school nurse or a part-time school nurse. Because she said the letter says something about per diem or, you know, she could come in here and there. So maybe I'm looking at things that maybe aren't going to happen, and it'd be great if we can fill the position and before then.
My conversation with her that she is looking, kind of help us out finding somebody.
That's good to know.
thanks.
She won't leave us high and dry.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of accepting her resignation, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? All right, motion carries. All right. Whole business. So back in November, we had a board goal workshop to refine our board goals. We only had a few people at that meeting. So with all the budget and stuff, it was just kind of held up, but it should have had received this annual work plan, and that was kind of the point of the workshop, is to refine the goals and have a work plan that that can be, I guess, used to work on goals and monitor goals. So if and I want to make sure everyone's seen this, and I know we don't have everybody here, unfortunately, but I think moving forward, this can definitely be revisited, and what we came up with in A, B, and C at that meeting is there. If anybody had any suggestions or edits to this, I think now would be a good time to just kind of quickly review it, but I don't think it'll be the last time. We're definitely working on this. Meredith?
Is this something that we're going to work on more, have another sort of board retreat to work on it in depth? I mean, it is kind of a big thing to look at during a regular meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely have more dedicated time set aside, I just didn't want to basically leave it in the email for months. So I think, at least, as we go through and at least the work plan that we discussed back in November, as we go through and we look at, like policy, and we're looking at, making decisions, having these board goals in mind, I think is pretty important. And, that's the kind of thing that can get, lost as we move throughout the year. And I think that, one of the things we talked about, monitoring outcomes and tests, and this is a discussion that has been like throughout the SU. Other districts and even at the SU level have had conversations about, looking at map tests and stuff like that. And as a board, that's something that we can do, and having it on the work plan is something that it's something that we should automatically be doing in our process every time assessments are done. And that's just an example of how we can work on these goals. So.
Are you looking for board members to take on these different lead roles?
Not necessarily, and not especially tonight. If anybody wanted to jump at the opportunity, absolutely. But there's a lot to be discussed, and I think I had half a thought. All right, did anyone have any questions or concerns around, I guess, the work that was done on this back in November? Okay. But it was frozen on my screen. All right, so like I said, it's work in progress. Amanda?
Should we look at scheduling potentially another meeting for us to go over these things a little deeper? And like, I know Cara wasn't present, and she's probably interested in what goals we did set a little deeper. Should we talk about scheduling another meeting to go over some of these things and set maybe some timelines of how we're going to achieve these?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that at reorganization. Would be my thoughts. Simply because I think it's on the reorganization template. I'm not 100% sure. But that would be a good time. We'll most likely have all the board members there. And yeah, no, I agree. That's a good idea. Okay. All right. So if nobody has any other.
So, sorry, this is just a thought. I probably should have raised my hand. When that meeting happens, is there the potential for an outside facilitator to talk about guiding us through systems change stuff, or is that kind of handled within the board generally?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that last part?
Or is it handled within the board? So like a lot of these kind of systems change goals work that I've been involved with in the past, there's kind of a facilitator that helps you establish your priorities, how to assess small impacts of small changes, what model do you want to use to assess progress or lack thereof. So, I mean, maybe that's a question to answer at reorganization rather than having it ready for reorganization.
Well, we did work with a facilitator to develop these. And so, yeah, it's a good question to how much more do we want to do with a facilitator?
Yeah. So we had our facilitator come out in July, and then we worked on establishing 4 goal statements, and then she came back and we had a special workshop just to take those and refine them into something that would look like a work plan. I thought it went really well. And again, we had well, obviously we had different, one other different person, I guess you could say, on the board when we developed those goals, but that doesn't mean that any insight.
Yeah, I think the goals themselves are great, fine. It's just in terms of guiding through actual change of like, what is the change you want to see? How are you going to monitor it? How are you going to know when you're done monitoring that goal? There are many different models of systems change, Sigma 6, A3, white belt, breakthrough, all of those. models. And if we're going to be using those models, then we should have a facilitator familiar with those models, is my suggestion.
Right, okay. Well, so you're suggesting a facilitator.
I mean, I wasn't there for the original meeting, so like, would it be helpful for those people that were there? Do they want facilitation support as we establish smaller goals within those bigger goals?
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, going back, a good time to, dig deep into what we've worked on. Like Meredith said, having a larger meeting on it would be pretty valuable. And that's something that, we should definitely try and schedule, at reorganization, but that's just my opinion. But I see what you're saying.
I would suggest having Kathy come do work with us through this process.
It definitely will keep us more productive.
I think so. In these, a lot of these goals, they're going to take some work. There's definitely some new territory here as far as board work goes. Okay. So does that sound good to everyone? Just like, okay, we'll move on. All right, so we have the annual report. I didn't see it in
This is a placeholder, just if there's anything new. So I'll have Christine McGinnis send out a draft of the annual report to the board members tomorrow morning, first thing. I'll have a copy of that in advance. Just a reminder that the meeting is the 23rd at February 23rd at 7 o'clock. It will be virtual.
Okay, Meredith?
So we're not going to be approving the annual report before it's sent out?
So that was the idea.
We haven't, the board has not approved that in the past. Based on the timelines that we've had, we need to get it to the printer based on a pretty tight schedule. So I know in the past we've gone over the PowerPoint at one of the meetings, which we can do if you like. But the annual report we've accumulated and sent out.
Okay, it was my understanding that we always approved it as well. Okay, so it's already been sent out.
Well, it's been sent to the printer. It has not been sent out to the public.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Printer.
It's been sent to the printer, yet we couldn't get a copy of it this evening?
I've asked Christine McGinnis for a copy, and I've not heard back from her as of yet.
You're looking for a copy? I could send you a copy, Chris.
Yeah, if you have one, she sent me, the formatting was off, so if you have a copy, Louis, please send it out. It's supposed to be included.
Yep, I'll grab that now.
Supposed to be. All right. Amanda?
I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but if we have any seats that are going to be available, has any notice been made before next week? Does anybody know what their options are? I know it's too late for them to really petition, but is there an open seat that we know of? And if so, do people know about it yet?
I don't know if people know about it, but I do know of one spot for Wells.
I just feel like I joined the board with write-ins finding out 4 days before voting, and that was really stressful for me. And I just think that we need to put something out there now to at least give somebody 6 days to look at. I found out on a Friday and voting was on Tuesday. So I don't want to see that happen again. That was a very stressful situation coming into the board that way and also being elected that way. So I think if we could put something out, that would be great.
I'm also a little bit, I mean, I've been so distracted that I'm a little bit confused about how all of that even works. Because like I filled a spot, I wasn't voted in at all. So like in order for me to be on the board, I assume I would need to be voted in February, even though my board spot is like a 2-year term or, I mean, I just don't know
Okay,
how it
so,
works, I guess.
yeah, so yeah, since you filled a vacancy, you would, if you wanted to get your name on the ballot, you would have had to file a petition with the
Right.
town clerk. Did you do that?
I did not, because I was
Okay.
kind of on the fence anyway, with the weight of things that are happening, you know, around me, so.
Since you didn't file the petition, your name won't be on the ballot, but you can get people to write you in,
Okay.
essentially, is what it comes down to.
Okay.
So,
I was just undecided, so I just, you know, we'll see how life plays out. I guess.
right. Okay, so,
Would it be possible for us to get that sent home in the school's Friday newsletter and also put on the Front Porch Forum this week? I know it's still very few days, but could we put it in all of those places?
yeah, I think so. Give us the wording.
I believe it was already put in Front Porch Forum for Middletown.
Oh, really? For,
Yeah, I think the town offices, they put out a list of all the open positions, and they included the Wellspring School Board positions
oh, the positions that are up for.
that are open. Yes.
Gotcha, yeah. Yeah, and there's 3 in Middletown and 1 in Wells. Great. All right, so I think we can come up with some wording. I can. Yeah. If it's okay with everyone, I can come up with some wording and send it to the principals.
I would be okay with that. I don't know if it's appropriate to tell people at this point that they would need to be written in because they've missed their opportunity to petition. I know that was confusing for me at the time, so since we're looking for somebody with not much time, it might be helpful if people knew that that was an option.
Right. Well, yeah, I get your point. And, you know, my thought too, though, is if someone really wanted to be on the board of directors, you know, they would go through the effort to put their name as opposed to waiting for a vacancy. You know? But maybe it just depends. Okay. All right, is there any other discussion on this? I guess, the annual report will be sent out. Okay.
He has the approved, but like first we sent it out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think it would be great if we had it in the Friday's news that comes out. I just feel like as a board, we're looking for parent involvement and we're looking for new people. And if all of our parents know, they might not be on Front Porch Forum or something. So that would be awesome if you don't mind putting something together.
Yeah. I think it was. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's something that Christine can do too. Porch Forum. I could do
She already,
that.
she already did, so that she's all over on school newsletters. I think that's what Amanda was asking for.
Oh, she said Front Porch Forum.
Is information about the open spots part of the annual report that will be going out to folks?
Yes.
And that will be going to every address registered voter in each town?
But the brochure the annual report is not being sent out to every single individual, so it's made available, but. it will
Right,
be-
but information about how to access the report will be going out to every household,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm not opposed to broadly spreading that information. I feel like we talked at the last meeting about how to more broadly get the information that's in the annual report out to folks. And so posting the link to the annual report on Front Porch Forum in both towns is probably an appropriate step as well.
Yeah, it would be.
But-
Man.
And putting it in the Friday notices at the school. That seems like an appropriate step.
Is there there's no link on the website for the reports yet, is there?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. So,
We can get one up on Friday.
right, so once that's available, that would make good sense. All right. All right. All right, so we'll move on to policies. We have 4 first reads and a couple second reads. We'd be looking for an adoption on G2 and H1. Don't believe these were changed in committee at all. I remember correctly. And then the other ones are first reads. Any discussions on the first reads? Okay. For H1 and G2, is there a motion to adopt these tonight?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on these 2 policies?
I think just, I said it at the last meeting as well. I don't know if we have a policy to stand on when we're talking about enforcing things regarding public health crisis. And so I don't know if that lands in this policy, but that was one of my concerns when we talked about it last month, was that potentially explicitly talking about health and safety in a parental involvement and volunteer policy. There might be some value in looking at that in the future, but I'm prepared to support it as it stands right now.
Okay. All right, so, you're thinking, and I don't believe you. You think I know, but, are you thinking along the lines of creating a policy specifically for that?
I mean, you're the one on the policy committee, so I'll leave it in your prerogative about the best way to manage that thought or that situation. But I think the feedback from earlier tonight is that without a clear policy, our enforcement or what have you capacity is significantly limited. And if we're going to hold a line about health and safety for our buildings and for our students, then we need to have something to fall back on.
Gotcha.
But again, I'm prepared to support this policy as it stands because of all the work that has gone into it.
Okay. So, yeah, no, so this could, so you'd be fine for something like this starting in committee first.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Wait, Amanda, do you have your hand?
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I'm afraid that if we talk right now about making a new policy, given the state constant changing and the fact that Vermont does not have mandates in place right now, that we might be putting, and it might be best to a little bit.
Amanda, you always break up. We always get like the third word every time you talk. I don't know what is wrong with your microphone, but.
She was saying that she's worried that this current situation might cause us to be too hasty with a policy. And I think that's right, which is why I think it going to the policy committee first is the most prudent course of action.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, I think.
Hopefully I didn't misunderstand you, Amanda.
No, that's what I was saying. I was just saying, I think that because Vermont is not currently, quote unquote, under a state of emergency or have any mandates right now, that if we as the school ourselves, Just Wellsprings, go trying to make a policy, it's not going to be the best time to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, I think, the policy committee is where a lot of that work can be done too. We can spend hours of work time working on something like that. So I will, depending on the outcome of the organization, definitely put this on the list for policies. Okay. So if there's no other discussion on policies, we don't have an executive session.
A quick question, was there any interest in new hires, perhaps, Springs? I put a contract in.
I didn't see anything.
Obviously not, I guess not, so.
Yeah.
Does Priscilla Belfer for the work for the after-school program?
Yeah, I didn't see
Yeah,
it
no,
there.
just double checking.
Okay.
But, I don't know how the board wants to handle it. I mean, I have had to stop this week because I needed help. But,
I mean, what I could do, and I've done this with the other boards, is that I could send the packet out to all the board members. And then if they feel it's okay, then we can have the employee start and then officially approve that employee on February 23rd. If we're okay with that. But we have done that in the past where we've had to hire, add need positions, emergency need positions in between board meetings. Yeah, but the board has an opportunity to review the candidate, and if there are any issues, they would say, if they say, no, I don't feel comfortable allowing this without a further discussion, but if all the board members are okay, then we proceed and then we formally approve that's the following.
Perfect.
I'm just suggesting to the board, it's a board's decision how they want to handle that, but that's what we've done with our other boards at times.
Okay, so yeah, that's true. That's when we have that gap in between meetings. So this is a new hire though?
It is just because of numbers, we have to have staffing, and frankly, I can't do it every night. So,
Right.
I want to make sure we're providing a safe program, and especially old kids, it's good to have, it needs to be the two adults. So,
So I don't know. I know we have one person on the hiring committee. Has anyone from the board been on any of these hiring committees?
So is a stipend position or like typically we don't have a formal hiring of this board, just you have someone come in and fill that, basically you're proving work for the stipend, but it's not a hire for like aftercare and things like that. So
Okay, that's why I use
this is
the
a current
term.
employee who is going to assist with an after school program, and so therefore we still have to approve the stipend.
Yeah, no, I think that's.
yeah, no, it's just after school workers, Buck Council right now.
That's historically what we've done in the past. Okay. Future meetings, February 23rd. Is there any other lawful business to come before the board?
I apologize for prolonging it, but one question I had, did we, like, is everything okay? Because at the end of the last meeting, we voted to approve the principal's contracts. Were those accepted? We're good? Is there any update? Sorry.
Yes, in fact, we've, Rick and Liz are receiving their new contracts today or tomorrow, so they should have already, it should be in the packet that I gave you. I think it's in there.
Amanda?
I just had one last question around the hiring of somebody for after school program. I'm just curious, what is the ratio of employer or staff to student for after school? Is it the same as a regular classroom?
Not sure there's a regular classroom ratio, but for after school, I'm pretty sure it's a 1 to 12, 1 to 13, age dependent.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
All right. So before we adjourn, I do want to say that, everyone, I'm sure, is aware that Courtney Bishop isn't running again, and I was hoping she would be here tonight, but I just want to publicly thank her for all of her years of doing board work. She worked on Act 46 and merger. She was on the Wells Village School Board for a number of years. So yeah, I just want to publicly, thank her for all of her years of service. And, she was an asset, and yeah, so we will have a vacant spot. Maybe, hopefully not. All right, so having said that, motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.